Hello, interactive art designers. Today I want to show you how you can publish your websites using the university's free web hosting um, abilities. They have a web host, and like I said, it's free. You're certainly welcome to find your own. I will talk about that in class this week, but really all you need to do is Google web hosting. And I would probably Google top web hosting services and compare different lists that will come up in the Google search engine, because a lot of those are just paid to get themselves onto lists. But if you see something that crosses a whole bunch of different lists, they're probably a good web host. And you sign up and you pay a little monthly fee usually, and you have a web host. Then you just transfer your files and everything is live. But like I said, the university offers a free service, and we're going to use that. There's probably only enough room to put on one project at a time. So keep that in mind. Before you graduate, I would suggest you buy your own domain and and find a web host and get yourself out there and have your portfolio online. You'll look much better to prospective employers if you have your website online and your own domain. Okay, so I'm going to use, what we're going to do is publish a recent demo I did about web typography. I've added an image just to give it a little life since it was just a single page. But if we do look at the files, there are a bunch of associated files that do go with this. There's all the fonts we used, so there's a bunch of fonts along with their style sheets in there. So there's layers of information in this site. My images folder only has this one image, the sparkler JPEG right here, which is a responsive image. And so far, we've been looking at these things locally, right? And Dreamweaver generates a little preview, so we can see everything and we can sort of test it. I can see that this is responsive. But let's publish this for real. On Canvas, I do have, under this week, some links publishing the site on your free UNC Charlotte web server host. And that will take you here, hosting.uncc.edu. My account says you must log into the service because I've already asked and requested for space. So when you first log on here, it'll ask you to request space, and you have to request to use the server, and it took me about 10 minutes, and then I was able to log in. And there's also another link about how you actually publish your website. And it tells you how. And it says you have to use an SFTP program, which is Secure File Transfer Protocol. You might be familiar with FTP, File Transfer Protocol. This is just Secure File Transfer Protocol. And this is built into Dreamweaver, so you don't need to get anything new. But honestly, I am going to show you how to use Dreamweaver, but I also have a little tutorial about how to use Fetch, which is also free. This is Fetch. If you just Google Fetch, it's fetchsoftworks.com. But you can download Fetch, and you don't have to buy it actually. If you look closely, it says educational and charitable organizations can get a free license, which is what I have. And I love this software. It's super easy to use, much easier than what's built into Dreamweaver, honestly. But I'm going to show you both options. And they'll both work with, they're both capable of doing secure file transfer protocol, so you can use this or Dreamweaver. But basically, just download it here and then request under here. There's a little link to go ahead and put in your school email, and they'll send you the license code, just a key to put in so that you don't have to pay, and it'll run. Okay, so look for that video too. I'm going to post that. I already have that one. But let's go ahead and post this. I mean, again, we're looking at it locally, just what's running off my hard drive right here. If I want to see what it looks like online, I would go to webpages.uncc.edu / and then put in my username, which is J. Murphy. Now, we're not going to see anything just yet because I haven't published it yet. It'll give me an error message. Oops, I think I must have put something in wrong. Because it usually would just say I don't have access or something of that nature. Oh, I spelled web pages wrong. There we go. I don't have any information on there yet, so nothing's on. I spelled Jeff Murphy wrong also. Okay, forbidden. That's what I was looking for. It is forbidden. All right, that will not be forbidden once we publish something. All right, so how do we publish it? Well, following their directions, how do I upload content to my personal web page? It says open the SFTP program of your choice. And here, again, you can use Dreamweaver or Fetch or FileZilla. And they all work. Fetch and FileZilla work pretty similar. Fetch is just really easy on a Mac. Connect to webpages.uncc.edu through your FTP or SFTP program. So let's do that. We're going to do step 2 right now, connect and authenticate with our password. Same password you'll use for email and such, and to log into Canvas. And then we upload our content. So all pretty straightforward. All we really need to do is connect. Okay, so I need this. I'm going to copy this to my clipboard, webpages.uncc.edu. That's where we want to connect to with the software, which in this case would be Dreamweaver. Okay, so here we are. We're in our files browser. We've done everything. Everything's designed. Let's say how we want it. We're done with our site. Don't do this till you're done with your site. First of all, it's really easy to mess things up because we're going to have 2 copies of everything basically. The local copy on our hard drive and a copy on the server, which is the one that's going to be served up by the host for people that want to see your site. Okay, so down here, there's a little globe. Let's close that. And there's a whole bunch of icons up here that you might have never noticed before, including this button that says Define Servers. This is sort of that connection to that server we're going to define. We haven't defined yet, so let's do that first. So define server, and we're going to, this says site setup for web type. Okay, under server, and this we've also seen, let's do this. You'll also find that under your site, manage sites. So this is my web type 1. If I look at it, under here, there's a server thing. You can set up a different server for every website, which makes sense because if you're publishing like, a site for Amazon, they would have their own server. If you're publishing your personal own website, your portfolio, you probably have a different server for that. Every client's going to have a different server, and if you're doing web work for them, you're going to have access to that server. So the way Dreamweaver works is it builds in to your site and your local file folder this connection to a server. So we can add a server here. So again, we can do it under site, manage sites, or we can do it under this define server. They both bring up this window. Just make sure you click on the button server and then we need a new server. And I'm going to call this one UNC Charlotte free and connect with SFTP. So don't pick the first one, pick the second one. Then the address was what they told me, webpages.uncc.edu. And the authentication, they said to use username and password. So my username, J.E. Murphy, password, save password, test. Dreamweaver connected to your web server successfully. That's what you want to see. All right, and then there's a web URL, webpages.uncc.edu, and it would actually be J.E. Murphy, so I can even put that in. Ooh, and root directory. This is really important, just to make it really easy. They don't mention this under the directions, so public _ HTML is the root directory. That is the root directory on their host. If you don't do that when you go to use little push buttons to push your files, it won't know where to put them, and it'll give you an error. All right. There's ways around this if you get, but just the root directory is public HTML. All right, lowercase underscore between public and HTML. All right, I'm going to say save. You can always go and edit that. Just double click. All right, so if you forgot any of those things or something's not working, just go back to that. And again, this will be saved with my site. So cool. All right, done. Now, some things have changed now. I have some extra buttons here that you might not have noticed before. And ends with connect to remote server, UNC Charlotte free, which is what I called it. If I connect there, I can start to upload my files. And the easiest way to do it is to expand and show local and remote sites. That way you can see your files that are on in your local root folder, and you can see the files that are in public HTML, which right now is nothing. But we can push all these, or we can just simply drag these over here. Or maybe we can't do that. Let's put them over there. I should have let you read that, but what it said. So just click on the file. You can do a whole folder at a time. And then this little up arrow is the put. Now, you saw me try to drag it over there before, because that's what fetch lets you do. I was hoping this would do it too, but no, it never does. So I'll have to put that little put. And this says, every time what comes up, it says, should dependent files be included in the transfer? That means if there's any things that are linked to, you should say yes, and it'll do it automatically. That's why the web fonts folder went up there, and now that CSS folder just went when I uploaded the index. But what you should do then, I'm going to hit this little arrow this way so they're both, is double check my folders. What I should see is a mirror. Everything that was working correctly in my on my local site folder should be uploaded exactly like that into my public HTML folder. Note also, I'm going to collapse these twirlies so that we can see. And I could drill down a little bit further if I want to make sure that all these things copied correctly, and they did. So I'm published. It's easy to check. I'm just going to go back onto my server and see if I'm published now. You should see this page behind me in all its glory. With the correct fonts and the image, if something doesn't show up, it means that one of those files did not make it to your public HTML folder. Okay, so at this point I could uncheck it, because here's why I tend not to use Dreamweaver for publishing, is because there is this, I was using this up arrow, it's called put, which will put a file from here to here, but there's also the ability to get a file from here to here. So you can actually be working in reverse. And anytime you have two versions of a file, sometimes you have an older one and a newer one, and it's really easy to overwrite the new one with the old one by mistake, or just make, it's easy to make mistakes. So before I do any of this, I would back up your entire local root folder somewhere else, just in case. It shouldn't take that much space, because you don't need to publish your PSD files or anything like that, right, in your local root folder. They should not be in there. You don't need PSD files or any files that aren't linked to. No Illustrator files, etc. So those are just the big files. You guys shouldn't have any videos just quite yet, so we should have room for this. Okay, so here's where we check. We go back to where we're getting the forbidden message, and I'm going to hit this little refresh. Now, this looks exactly the same as my preview, and it should, but look, it's at webpages.uncc.edu, J.E. Murphy, which is awesome. Notice I did not have to put the file index in there. If I wrote index.html, it would look the same if I load that, because it automatically serves up the first file. It looks for index.html and loads it automatically. If you wanted to test another page, let's do this. I'm going to close this for a minute. We're going to come over here for our index, and I'm going to duplicate it so we have another file. It's going to do that thing where it doesn't let me do it, so I'm going to Command D it. Okay, I'm going to call this like test file HTML. And I'm going to make one simple change here, just so we can tell this is a different thing. I'm going to say this is called test file exclamation point. All right, if I had another image, I could put that in there or whatever. Save it. Okay, so I have my index, which says type on the web, and I have my test file. Okay, now I have to have my test file in there as well. So I can now take this guy and say, put that. Okay. Again, I'll double check to make sure everything's there. It is. By the way, you can shift click things and do put for all of them at the same time, which if you have a super complicated site is super handy. Okay, so how do I see this if I want to test my other pages? Well, normally I'd have links from my index and I could check my other pages. But this is a good example of why I use index.html. If I want to see another page, if I didn't call my first page index, it would have given me an error when I put in if I put this in and I didn't have my first page being called index.html, it would not be able to find it. Or if I had another folder, it would not have been able to find it unless I specify that up here. So for example, like what if I called my first file test? What did I call it? I called it test file HTML. If that was my first file, I would have to tell my person, and in this case, that person would be me, and I'd be annoyed that you didn't call it an index.html. Test file.html. There it is. That is our test file. You can see the text right there that we changed. All right, so the index.html file loads automatically. Anything else, if it's in another folder, if it's got a different name than that, you're going to have to type that in as a URL and send that to everybody you want to see your site. So that's annoying. Okay. The only reason you might have to do that is if you have more than one site. But like I said, I don't think you have enough room on here for all the sites, all 3 projects. So we'll just put one project at a time up here on your UNCC server. And then when you need to get rid of it, it is not a big deal. In fact, let's do that. So just to remind you, it's this picture here, expand to show local and remote sites is the button I'm using. This one, by the way, is synchronize, so you can actually have it synchronize and transfer the files when you click that button, but I don't like that because I like to see it, but you're certainly welcome to use it. If you want to get rid of stuff out of here, all you have to do is click on it and hit delete. So let's make the test file go away, hit delete. Yes. Now that I've deleted it, let's go back and see what happens. I'm going to hit the refresh button here, and it's not found now. So it's amazing, I think, how easy it is to publish on the web now. So take advantage of this free resource. You have to, because we're going to be holding our crits remotely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share your URL with somebody else from the class, and they're going to type out an evaluation and send it to you. Probably make a list. Actually, I haven't decided yet. I'll probably make a list of everyone's URLs and give you a few of them to look at, and share that list with everybody so you can look at everybody's site and compare your project to everyone else's. But it's important that you get some feedback and let other people go through your site, because sometimes you make assumptions about what people are going to click on that are incorrect, especially since y'all are just beginning. So cool. And if you need any advice about web hosts, I've used lots. Every few years I find a deal. Things get cheaper every year, and I go ahead and load up. So I've used 1&1. I've used Yahoo, Bluehost. Right now I have iPage because they had a super cheap deal for a while. So there are some that always pop up. I'll just share that article with you too. Okay, good luck. Have fun.